Good evening, everyone. I'm Dorothy Chou, and I work at Google, and I'm responsible for what we call our transparency report. It shows when governments ask us to remove information from our services or hand over user data. So overall, we see a very disturbing trend. The number of governments that censor has gone from 4 in 2002 to about 42 today, and that's in just a decade. We operate in about 150 different countries around the world, and more than 25 of our services have been blocked at any given time. So we created this report precisely to track the types of trends about access to information online. So for those of you who don't know what this is, I'm going to go through a brief overview, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we released today, and then talk a little bit about how we move forward. The transparency report has 3 specific parts. The first is our traffic report. It shows the availability of our services in 150 different countries around the world. And this is one of our the first incidents that we saw, which, as you may know, was Egypt taking its country offline after the Tahrir Square uprising. But we also see some other interesting events, and this is one of my personal favorites. Basically, what happened was we saw an odd dip in Armenian and Georgian traffic, and we were so confused since we've never seen this phenomenon in those countries. What actually happened was that there was an elderly woman who happened to be a copper scavenger who happened to just chop the line that was carrying the internet between those 2 countries. And then what happened was that they didn't have internet access for 5 hours and therefore didn't have access to our services for 5 hours. We also see, though, some really optimistic trends. For example, in Myanmar, when they lifted a ban on foreign news sites for the first time in 2011, and we saw YouTube traffic suddenly go up. This site is actually updated in real time. So if you ever wanted to see if Blogger was available in Ireland or not, you could do that. The second part of our report, which is part of what we updated today, is our removal requests, which include the number of times we're asked by governments to remove information from our services, like search results, YouTube videos, or blog posts. Government requests show very interesting trends about the effects of laws on the ground, some of which have unintended consequences on the free flow of information. So take Brazil, for example, where you have a very broad definition of defamation. Even if you say things that are true, they can still issue us a court order, to remove that from our services. And so you see that number being very high for that country. This is updated every 6 months. In our removals portion, we also have our copyright report, which we launched last month. This shows the number of search results that copyright owners around the world ask us to remove because they allegedly link to infringing content. And we update this every 24 hours. And finally, our user data requests show the number of times governments ask us to hand over user information in criminal cases. So this is part of what we updated today, along with our government requests, where we uploaded data from July to December 2011. In this particular reporting period, so the second half of last year, we saw governments continue to target political speech for removal, which we've actually seen for all 5 sets of data that we've released since 2010, and we think it's particularly alarming. Mostly because this cycle, it came from countries that you wouldn't normally expect. So let me share a little bit about what we saw that we found concerning. In Spain, for example, we were asked to remove 270 different search results that linked to blogs and articles in newspapers referencing individuals, political figures, including mayors and public prosecutors. In Poland, we received a request from a public institution to remove links to a site that criticized it, and we didn't comply with that request either. In Canada, which is one of our most interesting cases to date, we actually received a request to remove a video of a man urinating on his passport, his Canadian passport, and then flushing it down the toilet. Now, it does sound kind of funny, but then when we actually took a look at the user himself, he was actually a Quebecois separatist, so it was actually a case of political speech. And in Pakistan, we actually were asked to remove videos that had to do with criticizing military officials. So what this tells us is that there are consistent patterns to remove political speech, and in many cases, this doesn't actually fall under a specific law. For the first time, we're also showing the number of court orders that we receive from judges after governments go through due process, as opposed to the informal requests that we receive from governments who don't go through due process. And we show this difference because we believe it's important for courts to be deciding what is legal and what is not. With this data, we're generally contributing to a public conversation about how laws and policies and behaviors influence access to information online. And many of the laws, like I said, that are being created may unintentionally result in overbroad censorship or surveillance. And with these government requests and this data that we present, we hope that policymakers can actually see what's going on online and then adjust and reform and tailor the laws that they have to make sure they're more effective and relevant in the ways that are intended. So one great example that I like is a very young Indian MP in September 2010 actually cited the compliance number in our request as an interpretation to say the majority party is actually trying to influence the people to go their way by asking people to take down political speech. So generally, what do we need to move forward from here? Well, ideally, we would like government themselves to be more transparent and open about when and why they're asking us to remove information from services, if ever. I mean, this is an important aspect of democracy, which is that people are able to hold their governments accountable, and if they want to change that law, they can exercise the democratic process to do that. The harm comes when there are no checks or balances, and there's a significant dangers of scope creep when there is a lack of disclosure. The fact is, the effects of laws that directly impact censorship and surveillance are quickly becoming entrenched, and we need the public to know and be able to confirm if those laws and policies are actually created in their best interest and enforced in their best interest. And to do that, we need more transparency. We're also asking more companies to join us so that we can actually get a better picture of what's going on online. Our view is pretty incomplete and limited because it's only about our services. That's all we can see. And so we would like more data points that show a larger context about what's going on. For example, a government could issue us 2 requests in a reporting period, but issue another company 1,000, and we would never know that. And finally, we need researchers to look at our data, to build on it, and to find these trends and call it like it is. In countries that traditionally cherish free expression, the risk is not that free speech disappears overnight, but rather it's that gradual erosion that we really need to watch out for. And without more transparency, we won't be able to realize what's going on until it's much too late. We really can't afford to mistake internet censorship for anything other than what it is, which is a threat to societies that believe that more information leads to more freedom, more choice, and ultimately more power for the individual. An open internet, one that continues to fulfill the democratic function of giving voice to individuals, particularly those who speak in dissent, demands that each of us makes the right choices to resist censorship and other acts to chill speech. As more transparency allows us to see that laws and policies are eroding rather than enhancing internet freedom, let us exercise the power to change them. Thank you.
Dorothy, thank you very much. Because we have a couple of minutes, anybody got a question? I emphasize question, not a speech. Yes, there at the front. We might have a microphone we can get to you. Yes, we can. If you'd like to tell us just who you are and the question then,
Sure,
please.
I'm from Kyrgyzstan. We receive internet through Kazakhstan. And unfortunately, time to time, many Google services are not available. We're not able to open some links because of filtering. And the question, how we can solve this problem? Because our citizens have a right to access to entire information without limitations. What Google does in Kazakhstan in order to ensure appropriate access of our citizens? How can we solve this problem? And this is the question about that in your diagram, I saw that Kazakhstan was
we have
highlighted.
the question there,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a really good question. One of the limitations of our report, and I'll caveat this with the fact that at Google what we like to do is not necessarily let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So if we think data is important, we will release it, and then we'll keep on improving on it. One of the limitations of our traffic report is that it doesn't show granular filtering the way that you're describing, which is the same for example, keyword filtering, right? That's something that we're looking into, and we would like to be able to show more and more. Generally, on our services, we try to ensure that they're as robust as possible. That said, the threat of internet censorship from governments is getting more and more complicated, and it's getting more and more scary. And I do think that there is more that can be done government to government that can help to put pressure in that situation.
Anybody else? Yes, lady at the front. Just 1 moment, you'll have a mic. Thanks.
My name is Dina, and I am from Kazakhstan.
Okay,
There you go.
this is the last one.
So,
Is this a resumed battle? Is it?
in Kazakhstan, we do know that some of the Google services are blocked in Kazakhstan, like blogger.com, blogspot.com, blog platform, like main blog platform, and it's blocked since, I think, 2009. And my question is, did Kazakhstani government send a request to you to block it for some reason, or did they do it just for some reason?
As far as I know, they did not send us a request to block it, but as you know, our report only goes back to about the second half of 2009, so it would depend on, and that's when I started working on the report, but since then, I don't know that specific case, so. Yeah.
Okay, just gentleman there in the middle with his hand up. Yeah, we're going to get a microphone to you. Just keep your hand up. Yeah, it's coming.
Thank you. My name is Mark Johnson from The Economist in London. It's laudable that you have such a good system for logging and responding to requests from governments and indeed publicising it. Do you think that Google does enough to log and respond to requests from individuals for takedown, both in terms of responding to good requests, valid requests, and in terms of publicising bad requests that may lead to censorship?
That's a good question. So let me clarify something. We have court orders here, obviously, in this request, in these requests. Those court orders could have come from a private dispute, and we just count it as a government request because it's a government entity, which is a court issuing that to us. So we do obviously comply with a significant number of court orders there, and that counts for individual requests. If you're talking about the flags for user removal, we actually do respond to those very, very quickly. And we are very concerned about that as well. All legal removals do come through our legal team, and they usually come through the government.
Okay, we're going to leave it at that for the moment. Thanks very much, Dorothy. Thank you.